Hi, my name is Scott Laird from the North Carolina School of Science and Math, and tonight I want to talk a little bit about applying reverb to your audio guides for your students to create virtual orchestra performances. Now, when I'm creating an audio guide, I like to put some reverb on my instruments to give them the sound of being in a room, in a hall. So the first thing you have to do is select a reverb that makes sense. For my money, when I'm selecting a reverb for an orchestra performance or an orchestra audio guide, I typically go to the presets for a small hall. I don't want a large hall reverb because I think they sometimes sound a little unusual to me. A small hall gets kind of the idea that I'm seeking. That's number one. Another principle of applying reverb is getting the right mix. Now, just about every reverb processor has a mix function on it. And that mix is really the mix of the dry signal to the affected signal. So if you use a 100% mix on the affected signal, what you end up getting is something that sounds really too wet and kind of indiscernible. It's not really what you want. So I typically start at about 50-50 on the mix, and then I work from there to get a really natural sound. The idea is that when you're in a hall, when you hear the sound of an instrument, you're hearing some of the sound of the instrument directly, that's the dry sound, and you're hearing some of the sound of the instrument kind of reverbing around the hall. That's the reverberated sound. And we're trying to find kind of that mix between those two that you would hear when you're listening to the orchestra. If you're conducting the orchestra, you're used to hearing more of the direct sound, so the mix then would be quite low. But if you're sitting out in the hall, you hear more of the reverberant sound, and so the mix changes. So again, I would start around 50%, about a 50-50 mix, and then work from there. It's very common for folks that are new to recorded sound to put too much reverb in their mix. So be careful that you don't sort of signal, if you're a novice at this, you don't want to signal that you're a novice by putting too much reverb. So definitely be careful of that. And try to kind of use your memory to make the reverb sound the way you want. Now, in all of the guides that I've been talking about, I really have a single track for each voice in the string orchestra. Violin 1, Violin 2, viola, cello, and bass. Now, the principle of applying reverb that I like to use is that higher pitches take up less space in the mix so they can handle more reverb. So I tend to put more reverb on the violins, and I put no reverb at all on the bass, and then I sort of graduate the reverb through the viola and the cello section. So I put the most reverb on the first and second violins, a little less on the viola, a little less on the cello, and I don't put any reverb at all on the bass. If you put reverb on the bass, it's going to get really quite muddy, and things become a little indiscernible. Same with the cello. You just don't want to put too much reverb on those lower pitched instruments. So the principle that I adhere to is low pitches, less reverb, or even no reverb on the bass, and put your reverb on the higher instruments, and you'll get a really pleasing sound that I think you'll be happy with, and that your students can hear exactly what you're going for. And by the way, when you're mixing your student projects, I recommend the same thing. Apply more reverb to the violins than you do. I wouldn't apply any reverb to the bass and just a very little bit to the cello. And I think you'll find that your results are really quite good. Good luck with this. I hope it works out well for you, and we'll see you the next time.